Hello, my fellow Americans. The Zonan's back at you. I was going to talk to you this week about the plight of the modern United States law enforcement officer. However, scores of the Zonan's fans have called in wanting his take on the debt ceiling, basically our economy and the basic state of our union. So I figured that I would take this opportunity to deliver the Zonan's State of the Union address, since everybody's eagerly wanting to hear it. Well, let me tell you, number one, the first problem we have is we've got all these politicians acting like spoiled little brats. Instead of doing what's best for the good of the country and for the citizens of the United States of America, they're too busy trying to get their team to win. Whether it be the Republican or Democrat team, all they care about is their team, quote unquote, winning. Staying in office, staying in power, etc. The elite want to stay in power. They don't care what happens if the rest of the country is going to hell in a handbasket. That's the number one problem I see. And is it going to change? I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm hoping we can get a politician, somebody who's got an iota of integrity, who will do the right thing, or regardless of whether it's best for the Republicans or the Democrat. I just hope he'll do the right thing for the which is what will be best for the entire country, the United States of America. If we don't get somebody in there, in office, in power, in control, people in control, in office, in D.C., to do what's right for the country and not what's instead best for their own personal political careers or for their parties, we're doomed. We are utterly and irreparably doomed as a country. Alright, I'm sorry I had to start off with a rant. Of course, we need spending cuts and revenue increases. Let's talk about spending cuts first. What we need to do first off is to defund several organizations. We need to utterly defund ACORN, as I've said before, because they are the most corrupt organization in the history of the United States of America. Defund the National Labor Relations Board. They are an anti-American organization who are bent on destroying capitalism at its core by telling businesses where they can and cannot do business. That's totally un-American. So let's go ahead and defund the National Labor Relations Board. Defund Planned Parenthood. Defund the Department of Education. Defund the National Endowment for the Arts. And defund NPR. If conservative talk radio can't get paid taxpayer dollars, neither should liberal talk radio. And another thing, how about no more earmarks? No more putting of earmarks, attaching earmarks to bills for individual senators and or representatives' pet spending projects in order to garner their votes. They can either vote for the bill or not vote for the bill, but we're not going to put a bunch of pork attached to the bill as earmarks for spending measures for these individual representatives, senators, precincts, or constituents, I should say. That right there is causing wasteful spending and out of control spending. So we need to outlaw earmarks utterly and totally. Let me tell you something. Another example of out of control spending, I read the other day where the Department of Agriculture is sending a team of investigators to go out and investigate and determine whether magicians are actually pulling licensed rabbits out of their hats. You think I'm making this up or kidding? I'm dead being serious. That's the utterly pathetic thing about it. Taxpayer dollars are being spent on Department of Agriculture investigators to go out and investigate and ensure that the rabbits being pulled out of magicians' hats are duly licensed. Come on, man! Are you kidding me? And people wonder why spending's out of control? No wonder we have a national deficit of $14.8 trillion. When is our people in the powers that be going to get serious about cutting spending? We should have never gotten to this point. We should have never gotten to the point where we had to get to $14.8 trillion deficit and debate about whether to raise the debt ceiling. We should not be here. but we are. That's what's pathetic. This was all avoidable. Okay, increased tax revenue. I don't play favorites. You know, well, hold on. Before I go to increasing tax revenue, another way to save money and cut spending. Bring the U.S. military home, would you? Is that so hard to do? Enough of being the policeman of the planet. It's time that's a huge drain on the economy, our military. We need to bring our U.S. military home and put them on the border, where they can do the most good. Put them on the border where they can secure it and protect the jobs of U.S. citizens. Enough of the illegal immigrants coming over and taking jobs away from legal U.S. citizens. Enough of the illegal immigrants coming over and exploiting our welfare, our educational and healthcare systems and draining them. Enough of the illegal immigrants coming over here and being incarcerated when need be and placing a strain on our criminal justice system. Costs money to incarcerate them as well. There'd be a bonanza of savings if we could secure our border. So bring the U.S. military home and put them on the border where we have far more vital U.S. interests, securing the border. Okay, enough of the cutting of spending. Next, tax revenues. Absolutely, we do need to raise tax revenues. How do you do that? You flat out cut out the tax reform. You cut out the loopholes and the subsidies that the fat cats exploit. We need enough with the write-offs. These people going out and writing off taxes. I know people that do a cash business, so that way they don't declare the money they earn from cash. They don't declare. They cheat the government by not reporting their cash income, which is against the law, but people do it all the time. And then they write this off and write that expense off and brag that they didn't pay any taxes because of writing everything off and not declaring all their income. That's got to stop. And there are certain ways we can stop that and close those loopholes, etc., and stop those subsidies. I know a guy down the street from me, quite frankly. He owns one horse. He reveals that he only owns one horse because he don't like horses. The only reasons he owns a horse and bought one was to get that federal subsidy. I guess there's a federal farm subsidy that if you own a horse or some kind of farm animal, you get a big tax subsidy or what have you. So it gets a bonanza from the federal government for it. Stuff like that needs to be cut out. These subsidies and tax loopholes need to be abolished. You know, what's going on? You need to reinstitute the inheritance tax. Make no mistake about it. The very wealthy can afford to pay an inheritance tax, and that needs to be reinstituted. Let's get that inheritance tax in there. Another thing is this. The rich people, once they become 65, make them put a little bit more into the kitty when it comes to Medicare. Make them pay a little extra for Medicare health insurance, since they can afford to. One thing that could stop all of this and prevent all of these problems, quite frankly, is Herman Cain's fair tax. Now, I've spoken about this before. It's a 23% retail tax on all products with a prebate for those of lower income. If need be, we can actually have an exclusion on foodstuffs, excluding, of course, alcohol, tobacco, and junk food and stuff. So if you want to not tax the food stuff, that's okay, as long as you tax all of the products, including the alcohol, tobacco, and junk food. But a 23% retail tax on everyone, like I said, with a possible prebate for those of lower income. It would be a bonanza for everyone, and it would do away with all these tax write-offs, these subsidies, these loopholes that the rich use in order not to pay their fair share of taxes. I mean, it's the logical and common sense thing to do. The other thing is, we certainly can prioritize our spending. It makes more sense to tax our spending than our income. We can prioritize our spending. We can prioritize what we spend our monies on. There ain't much we can do about our income. I mean, you tax your income, ain't much you can do about that, right? So makes more sense to tax spending instead of income. And it also enables us to be able to abolish the IRS, because the IRS would no longer be necessary, and that would be quite a savings if we could just abolish the entire IRS. That would save a bunch of money. So quite frankly, the solution's there. The solution's there. Are we going to avail ourselves of it as a nation? Are our leaders too ignorant, too self-centered and selfish to do the right thing. Unfortunately, it's quite possible. If things don't turn, if our country doesn't turn a 180, I mean like yesterday, we're doomed. What you're going to see is a mass secession from the Union. Our country will utterly crumble and break up into several different nations. We may break up into like 3 or 4 different nations. You don't believe it can happen? Just look at the other superpower of the 80s and early 90s, or I should say 80s. Yes, the United Soviet Socialist Republic. Look at the USSR circa 1988. Look what happened to them when their economy crumbled. They utterly collapsed, and now the former USSR is comprised of like 7 or 8 different nations. Make no mistake about it, that's what will happen here within 5 years, unless severe, drastic changes are made for the better. I would love to say that the Zonan's optimistic, but quite frankly, I'm realistic. I don't see it happening. I hope and pray it does, but I just do not see the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. Well, to all my friends, keep your chin up and cheer up, because the Zonan will be back in a few weeks. Till then, tell everyone to stay in the zone with the Zonan.